Mr. Buster Flips!
Mr. Buster Flips! Mr. Buster Flips! Mr. Buster Flips!
Good morning and welcome to Mr. Buster Flips. Today I want to talk to you about one of my favorite plays. And it's a great play for studying in school, and I'm so glad that students all over the world still explore William Shakespeare's Hamlet. I think it's an excellent play to explore both the conventions of drama, but also the human condition and what makes us human and what are the complexities of being a human. And so I want to explore or talk a little bit about recently I've had experience with students and reading a lot of student responses to the play. And there are some things that I think really distinguish the strong candidates from those more in the middle bands in terms of marks. And that there are three central ideas that I think students who maybe don't quite achieve their potential spend too much time exploring three central ideas that really are not worthwhile wasting your time on. And so I want to highlight these three ideas that I think you can kind of just accept that Hamlet is a dramatic construction by Shakespeare. He's used these tools to create the drama. We don't need to question these dramatic devices as such. So here are three things that I think you should avoid and not talk about when you talk about Hamlet. Number one, don't question the validity or the reality of the ghost, whether the ghost is real or whether it's just a figment of Hamlet's imagination. The ghost is clearly seen in the opening scene and in Act 1, Scene 4 and 5 by Marcellus, by Francisco, and by Horatio. So it's real. Other people do see it. There's no question about that. Whether they hear it speak or not, certainly the conversation between the ghost and Hamlet is not overheard by the others. They may or may not hear him request that they swear in Act 1, Scene 5, but that is not entirely clear. The ghost does not reveal itself to Gertrude in the closet scene in Act 3, Scene 3, but that does not mean that the ghost is not real, right? The ghost is choosing not to reveal itself for Gertrude in order to, as he says, whet Hamlet's almost blunted purpose, to make sure that he gets a new edge on that sword, the sword of revenge, and to focus his thinking on that which he has asked him to do, which is avenge him. So yes, do not spend your time thinking about is the ghost real or is Hamlet insane, because that is, for all our intents and purposes, is not relevant. The second idea that I want you to avoid when you explore Hamlet is the idea of procrastination. Often we hear students talk about, oh, Hamlet is such a big procrastinator. He never gets anything done. He just talks and talks and talks. And sure, there are a lot of words, as he says to Polonius. But you've got to think about Hamlet as there's a clear development of his character. And really, if you look at him rationally, he is not really procrastinating, but merely rationally analyzing reality and facts and evidence. And this is because Hamlet is meant to be a product of the University of Wittenberg. He's come out of there, a school where they teach you to think critically and use scientific evidence. He's come out of that school, and so when he first hears the word of the ghost, he is doubting, is this a spirit of health or a goblin damned? He's not sure if he can trust this ghost or not, and therefore he wants evidence. And he creates that evidence by setting up the play, the Mousetrap as he calls it, by editing and altering the play, The Murder of Gonzago. And this is how he gains certitude. He is now sure that, yes, Claudius is guilty. And so in the very next scene, he contemplates taking his revenge, right? He's standing over him as Claudius is confessing his sin, and he's ready to strike. But then he realizes, oh nay, this would be higher in salary and not revenge, because he would send his soul straight to heaven, and he can't have that. Therefore, he decides to wait until he's confessing one of those, until he's committing one of those sins that he lists in the adulterous pleasures of his bed, etc., etc., so that he can be sure that Claudius's spirit will go to hell and not to heaven. And, true to his word, in the very next scene, Hamlet comes into Gertrude's closet. He finds what he thinks is a sinful Claudius behind the arras. He pulls out his sword and he stabs him and he kills him. And only then realizes that it's not Claudius but Polonius that he has killed. So he's certainly not holding off taking action, right? As soon as he knows, he kills him. And then, of course, this causes other problems for him. He now has to first of all, make sure that he doesn't get hung for treason when the king is still alive. And therefore, he has to endure the whole being sent off to England thing and the adventures with the pirates and getting rid of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. But as he returns and he has the exchange with the clowns in the graveyard, he then proclaims that this is I, Hamlet the Dane, and he's back and he's taken revenge and he seeks out, and the first chance he gets, he takes his revenge on Claudius. So the idea of procrastination isn't valid. Yes, he is rational, yes, he's reasoning, but he is not a procrastinator as such. He maybe takes longer than you or I would, but that is because he is a thinker. The third idea that you should avoid when you're exploring Hamlet is the idea of insanity. A lot of students want to discuss, yes, is he only pretending to be mad or is he really mad? Again, this is a tool that Shakespeare uses to get other ideas about the human condition across to us. Ignore the red herring trail of going down exploring whether or not this is real insanity. Because clearly he tells us in Act 1, Scene 5, I'm going to put on an antic disposition. And this antic disposition is then employed all the way through until the graveyard when he proclaims himself to be the true Hamlet, Hamlet the Dane, who's returned from England and is now ready to take his, if not take his throne, at least take his revenge on the treacherous king. And so, yes, there's a differing level in how much insanity he does, how much of an antic disposition he puts on, and that is depending on how much he trusts the people that he deals with. So when he initially meets Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, he trusts them, and therefore that trust comes through in him speaking in prose and being much less candid. He's much more candid, and not concealing his true emotions. He tells them that the world now seems to him nothing but a pestilent congregation of vapors. There's nothing there really that has meaning to him after the death of his father and the hasty remarriage of his mother. He's very open with them. Whereas with other people who he perceives as being not worthy of trust, such as Polonius, Ophelia, and the king and the queen, he is much more guarded in his actions. And obviously with Polonius, he puts on an extreme show of being completely insane, to such a degree that it's so hyperbolic that in any other situation it would be incomprehensible, and no one else would believe it except for Polonius, who's so gullible. So, and that is partly because Polonius wants to believe that Hamlet is so smitten by his daughter Ophelia that he cannot resist her, and therefore he cannot maintain his wits. Excuse me. So, again, with the players, when the players arrive, he's completely open, he's completely reasonable and completely logical. There's no doubt that he's sane in the exchange with them when he can recall. He wants them to retell the speech, Pyrrhus' speech from Troy, and he remembers the murder of Gonzaga and says, "Can I please insert some extra lines in here?" There is no doubt about his true sanity in that scene. So it's only when he wants to mislead the king and the queen and Ophelia, essentially, or Ophelia only because she's a tool of the others, so that they are, so he can get closer to them and find out the truth. If you know your history of the play, you know that this is something he's borrowed from both from Philip Marlowe and from an older version of Hamlet as well, where the prince had to feign insanity to stumble around the court and eventually stumble into Claudius through his circular bodyguards with which he was protecting himself, and thereby he was able to stab the king. And so Shakespeare has borrowed that, but obviously changed the tool of the insanity slightly to ensure that it has more validity in his version of the play. So so much of that. Please avoid those three ideas because there's so much wealth in this play, so many interesting ideas to explore, so many aspects of the human condition. You can explore, I mean, you can use these tools if you want to explore themes like illusion and reality, or if you want to explore ideas of human distrust or insincerity, all those sort of aspects. You can certainly look at insanity in that context, or you might look at the ghost as a dramatic device in order to using surreal elements to explore real issues, because that's what Shakespeare is doing. He's trying to bring these ideas and make them as interesting as possible for us, but at the same time explore aspects of what it truly means to be human, the complexities of being a man or a woman. So hopefully you can avoid those issues and instead explore some really interesting aspects of the play. If you have questions about this video or other videos, please post comments below. If there are things that you would like me to help with in other areas of your English course, don't hesitate to ask. I'm happy to help as often as I can. So best of luck with Hamlet, and we'll see you again soon.